And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
Business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Gocher.
how well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at preneurmedia.tv.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's fantabulous episode of PreneurCast. Yeah, did you like that one? Fantabulous. I just thought I'd try something different. With me, Dom Goucher, and him, Pete Williams.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another fantabulous show.
I think I'm going to stop doing that. I just sound silly doing that thing. I sound like some kind of radio DJ from the 80s. And I absolutely haven't got the hair for that.
True. That is true.
And I think we'll leave that one there. Awesome. Great to hear your voice again, and great to be back on track with the episodes. And I just want to get straight into this one, mate, because we had a little brief chat before this call about something, and we just literally, I just said, that's it, we've got to do this now. We have to record this now because I was so interested and excited in what it is that we've been talking about. I think it's going to make a great episode. So,
well, we touched on it last week as well, really briefly in the show.
Well, exactly. So do you want to recap that for us, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, well, you're kind of sort of ranting a little bit about the whole Apple taking 30% cut of, magazines and apps and all that sort of stuff that they allow people to sell through the iTunes store. Apple take their 30% cut. And I know this is a bit of an old story in that, this is sort of, huge, conversation, debate, probably a couple of years ago now, actually, when this all sort of stuff happened, and it continually comes up, regularly. And it really is, it's just a discussion around, what is the true cost or the willing cost of doing business and being successful? And, there's other examples that I want to talk about on the show today beyond just Apple, but I think that's probably a good place to start because a lot of people are probably familiar with that that perspective, and do you want to sort of set the context there, and then I can kind of give some relatively harsh examples of what this really is. Yeah.
So the example that we brought up last week was a lot of people in the press and in the industry, and I don't want to. I absolutely want to say this up front, by the way. The example I'm going to talk about is an internet-based example, and I'll maybe give a couple of side examples around internet-based businesses. But this is about business. It's brought to the fore by people working on the internet because we're on the internet, and so we get a lot of noise from the internet rather than from the real world and from real-world business. But we deal with real-world businesses all the time, both ourselves in our own businesses and also with the people that we consult with. And this is not unique to this ironically tiny world of the internet marketing people and the internet marketing space. But there's this concept out there which really did come to the fore with Apple because Apple's such a big company. And it was this idea that if you list something for sale through the Apple platform, so through iTunes for music or through the App Store, which is a really popular thing in the internet space at the moment, or the really new platform, which is this iBooks and the newsstand, so digital publications. Mm-hmm. If you list anything on any one of those platforms, Apple will, across the board, take a 30% cut of the profit. Yep. Okay. And when the latest platform came out, this iBooks and the newsstand, literally, people from the low to the high, so the ordinary entrepreneurial people looking for an opportunity, so let's call them an opportunity seeker. The opportunity seeker, right the way up to the big magazine publishers, said, "No, stuff you. You are not," and I quote, "taking 30% of my money. You are not taking 30% of my money." So they literally refused to list their products on this platform. And that, in the words of our good friend Ed Dale, is insanity. It's totally looking at things in the wrong perspective. That people are taking your money. Actually, what they're doing is offering you a massive free marketing opportunity, a massive free infrastructure opportunity that in the main you can't possibly compete with. And for this service, when you make a sale of your product, before you get your money, they take 30% off of whatever the list price was that you listed that product for. Which is a huge difference to their taking 30% of my money.
Well, I completely agree. And the argument I keep making is that, and I want to talk about some other examples as well throughout the show, but in the Apple example,
yep.
As an app developer or a magazine publisher going through their newsstand platform, you're a wholesaler. Apple's the retailer. Think about if you were selling your magazine in a newsstand, if you were producing shoes and selling them with an athlete's foot, if you were manufacturing widgets and selling them in a widget shop, what happens? You provide you create the core product, you then give an inventory level to a retail store or a number of retail stores, and then they sell it to the consumer. They find the consumer. They get the consumer to come into their retail store. They deal with the credit card charges. They deal with the refunds. They deal with speaking to a client. And then on 90-day terms or 60-day terms, you get paid against that inventory that you provided that reseller. So if you're a shoe manufacturer, you make your shoes, you send a bunch of inventory to a retail store. They then do all the marketing, all the customer service, all the credit card transaction stuff, and then they pay you a chunk of cash 60 days on 60-day terms. That's how it works in the real world and has for centuries. It is no different to what Apple's doing. They are the retailer.
Yep.
You're the wholesaler.
Yep.
The only difference is the inventory is technically infinite because it's digital material. So the only difference is it's an infinite type thing. And for whatever crazy reason, people think that's ridiculous. It's actually better for you. You don't if you're Nike or if you're a widget manufacturer or a light globe manufacturer, whatever it might be, you have to pay for all this infrastructure to build. You have to actually produce the globe, which you have to do with apps anyway. There's a fair bit of cost in developing an app. So that's like building the factory and the system and all that sort of stuff to build the light globe. But to actually have the light globe available for sale, you have to actually invest and produce thousands of light globes, then have to get distributed to the retail store. So it's even more expensive to do that.
Can I just before you do anything else, can I just say, right, so let's go with your example and let's just give something an absolute concrete here, like comparison for comparison, before we go into the drill down into detail. How much profit margin would the retailer expect to put on your product on average?
Okay. I'm talking margin, not markup.
Sorry, markup, whatever.
Well, let's say margin. Let's say hypothetically, you sold that light globe for $10. You sold that as the retailer. So the retailer sells that at retail to the consumer for $10.
Right.
They would be buying that for anywhere between $5 and $7 in general.
So in general, there is a difference between what the wholesaler can sell it to the retailer for, and what the retailer will sell it for, of between 30 and 50%.
Yeah, so the retailer will take generally between 30 and 50% of the retail price as their cut, so to speak, for doing the marketing, doing the sales, and that's how they make money.
Right.
So you as a wholesaler.
And this is a universally accepted principle that as a supplier as the wholesale supplier of the goods, you expect a certain amount for those goods that the retailer will buy it from you for, based upon how many, how much scale they can give you and how many thousands they can order and things like that. Mm-hmm. And they expect to put some level of markup on for the infrastructure that they bring for all that marketing and things and whatever, right?
Absolutely.
Right, okay. Because that is exactly the perspective that is missing in this situation.
But it gets better. This is the crazy thing.
Yep.
So the margin that Apple take, 30%, is the same, if not better, for the wholesaler than in retail perspectives, because retail can be quite often higher.
Absolutely.
But
And this is where we want to drill down into,
But this is the killer bit. Is it legal for a shoe manufacturer, a computer manufacturer, a globe manufacturer, any sort of manufacturer to tell the retailer what price point that has to sell at? It's completely illegal.
Yep.
It's you as a manufacturer, you cannot go to the reseller and set price and say you have to sell this product at this price. You cannot discount it. You have to sell at recommended retail. That's absolutely illegal. But with the Apple Store, who sets the price at retail?
Oh,
the manufacturer.
Yeah.
You, as the developer of the app, get to tell the actual retailer, Apple, what to sell the thing for.
Yep.
Like, I'm amazed that this is actually illegal, technically. Because you're, like, yes, there's obviously ways to make it legal, the way the agreement is, and Apple's just a distributor, not a retailer, and, like, legally it's okay. But in any other industry, any other thing where you produce the core, if you produce a book, if you produce a magazine, the actual, bookstore, the newsstand, have the right to discount that magazine without your permission as the manufacturer or the publisher. Apple can't do that.
By the way, I don't want to get into the legalities because we talk to a worldwide audience, and there may be somewhere in the world where this is not true. But to flip that on its head and make it slightly more from the perspective, certainly that I'm coming from, okay, so if you want to make X from your product, from the sale of your product, and Apple are going to take 30%, get your calculator out and change the price you want to sell it at to account for the fact they're going to add 30%. They're going to take 30%.
That's the whole thing. This is the thing that I've always seen when it comes to producing apps for the App Store, producing Magcasts for the newsstand, producing iBooks for the iBook Store, is you are a publisher.
Yep.
And a publisher is a wholesaler. If you want to produce your own apps and sell it direct to retail on your own website outside the Apple infrastructure, now obviously if you're trying to do that for an iPad or iPhone app, it's not possible because it's a closed infrastructure. If you are wanting to do that for a general OS X, like a Mac operating system app, you can absolutely do that. You can just sell it direct and people can buy the app and download it and you're good to go. You can go from manufacturer to retail. But, EA Sports traditionally, who produce, all the great, games for Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo and stuff like that, these guys traditionally never had that ability. They never sold direct to market. They did that wholesale. They were a publisher.
Yeah, I mean, so I want to drill down into this because I think that there may be people out there that really, with the best will in the world, and no fault of their own, are maybe not aware of how wholesale and retail works. Maybe they are entrepreneurs that they've come straight into a small business of their own. Maybe they are looking at putting something online. Maybe they're not, but maybe they just don't understand it. And I think it's this lack of... there's two things here to me. It's a lack of understanding and a lack of perspective. And I want to drill down into the examples we've given so far so that people are clear on why we get so excitable about this stuff. And some of it is because it's a lack of understanding of the standard operating procedure and a lack of perspective of the opportunity. And those are the two things I kind of want to focus on here before we move on and make a wider example of this. Because we started with the cost of doing business. And there's a lot of examples other than the ones we're talking about right now where this is applicable. Yeah? So starting out, so standard operating procedure. If you are, and your example is perfect for this. If you are a manufacturer of goods, you have two choices. You can try and create a distribution, delivery, marketing, sales, order processing, and order fulfillment infrastructure yourself. Yep. Or you can tap into one that is already there.
Yep.
Right?
So you could produce something and approach Walmart and say, Walmart, I want you to sell this in all your bazillion stores across America.
For example. Okay? Now, it would never in a million years occur to anybody in any business, any real-world business, bricks and mortar in the history of business, it would never expect, nobody would ever realistically expect that if you give your thing, if you manufacture the product and then get it to the distributor, get it to the retailer, get it to the whoever, you would not expect them to sell that product for the price that you sold it to them for.
No, God no.
Okay. Now, you may not understand why they need to sell it. You may only have this tiny little perspective that, well, obviously they need to make a profit. But actually, it's not that they need to make a profit. This is really important, folks. This is everybody. Like, stop jogging for a second, take a breath. let the dog have a run around a tree, whatever it is you're doing. It's not that they need to make a profit. It is that they have an infrastructure. Just like you had to set up your machines, you have to pay your staff, you have to pay the electricity bill. These guys are doing a phenomenal amount of work to stock, market, sell, process the sales, deliver, fulfill, all those other jobs that are involved in getting a product into the hands of a consumer. They have to.
I'm going to say marketing. I know you said it, but I'm going to reinforce it because that's what Walmart do. They're the marketers.
And by the way, yes, I will come back to the marketing in a sec. But there's that. Every one of those jobs costs money to get done, and to do it for one more product costs more. It's not like they're putting it into an existing infrastructure and it just gets absorbed. That's really not a good way of looking at this. That's a bit naive. Realistically, these people are going to take an incremental cost by taking on another product. It takes up shelf space. It takes training of the staff to get the product out and all the rest of that. Yeah? And on top of that, because, let's flip it on its head. And let's go back to your marketing example. If it was just you on your own, trying to market your product, trying to just even raise awareness, let's not worry about transactions, let's not worry about processing credit cards, let's not worry about delivery and support and all those other things. Let's just talk about getting the word out about your product. Would you rather, A, you, little Joe widget maker, in the back of Beyond, in your shed, with your screwdrivers and your saw, making your product, would you like to try and market your product to a wide enough audience that you can get enough, let's talk about 7-Elevers, that you can get enough traffic, that you can get enough opt-ins, that you can get enough conversions? Or would you like to go to an existing infrastructure that has an existing marketing platform, that has an existing awareness, an audience that has an awareness of their marketing materials, that has an existing list of people to talk to, that they've probably sold to before, that they can sell to again easily, and let them do all that for you? Do you want to spend that money, time, effort doing that marketing, or do you want somebody else to do it for you? Because if you wanted to do it, at some point it would cost you some money, would it not? Mm-hmm. Yeah? If you want to do marketing, if you want to do advertising, if you want to put an advert, even in your local newspaper, you want to put an advert in there, it's going to cost you money. And you will have to pay that money out of your pocket.
Yeah. And the thing is, to sort of, I guess, jump higher really quickly, is that in most cases, if you're going to try and build that channel, that path to the direct consumer yourself, it's going to absorb more than 30% of the cost of your product.
Exactly.
Because you don't have the economies of scale that the retailers do. The Amazons, the Apples, the Walmarts, even the strip mall store down the road. They still have some economies of scale.
Absolutely, and this is it. And this is the thing, is ironically, people see the 30% that Apple are taking from the sale price of the product as a cost. It's not a cost. That's their cost. They're already spending that money. They've already, and I'll come back to this in a second and just really, really hammer this one down. But it's not a cost to you. It doesn't come out of your pocket. It was never in your pocket. Okay? Find a way to deal with it, but trust me, it was never in your pocket. You're never going to get it. It's not making any difference to you. You're not spending it. Whereas if you run that advert in the local newspaper, or you do Google ads, or you pay for a TV spot, or you pay to have a video made to promote your product. Notice I'm saying these words, pay, because you will pay. It will cost you money. Yeah? Okay.
Well, let's look at the numbers really quick. Like if you say the average product, I would say a smart marketer, a smart entrepreneur would budget around a starting point of 20% of sale price into them directly for cost of acquisition. So if you sell something for $100, you would start to budget at $20 for your cost of acquisition. You pay $20 to make that $100 sale. So let's say you've got a 20% cost of acquisition at a minimum. Your, Amex or Visa fees are 2 to 3%. So you're now at 23% cost. What does it cost for the actual staff to, do the refunds and customer service and that sort of hassle? On average, 5%? If you amortize it across all your sales for a particular week or month. So you're now up to 28% already. And you're just in your little local strip mall. Or you're doing a little direct mail campaign in your local newspaper or trade journal. Whereas, these platforms, they've got global reach. It's just that when people sit down and actually do the raw math, 30% is actually ridiculously cheap.
Yeah, let's just I just want to clarify something there. There were two things in there that I class as costs, and one of those things that I think you can is not quite cost. There's definitely, if you are doing the marketing, you are going to pay, and you are going to pay first and get your money back after the sale. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you have staff, you are going to pay first and get your money back after the sale. If you manufacture, you're going to pay first, get your money back after the sale. Yeah. The one thing in there that's slightly squidgy is the fee processing of the cards, because that's you taking money and you're being charged for taking the money. Okay, so that's not quite an actual money out of your pocket cost. Yeah. No,
but that's what.
But it is part of the overall amount that you need to allocate.
Yeah. So the 30% that Apple takes absorbs that 3% of transaction fee.
Absolutely. And this is so then now let's go over to this infrastructure thing, yeah? Because all those things, let's say you are in a local strip mall, or you are in your shed in your back garden, or on advertising in the local newspaper, or whatever it is. All those things, you have a limit to what you can do based upon how much money you have in your pocket, right? Mm. And every time you get more money back in your business, you've got to invest that money back into that marketing, back into that manufacturing infrastructure, back into that staffing to scale up. And every time you scale up, and this is back to that fisherman story that I told, probably the apocryphal story of the fisherman in the boat that I've told a couple of times, I think. Do you remember that one? Yeah. Yeah, the guy.
Vaguely.
Yeah, it's the old guy in a boat, right? Old guy in a boat, and he's fishing away, and he's been out there all day, and at the end of the day, he comes and sits in the bar, and he's got a bucket full of fish. And a guy in a business suit in the bar sat next to him, supposedly on holiday, but I don't know what he's doing in a business suit. But it's a story. He looks at him and goes, "Whoa, you've been out there all day, you've got a bucket full of fish. What's that all about?" He said, "Oh, I just need enough to feed myself and my family." He said, "Well," and this business guy, I'm going to cut the story short, but the business guy basically says, talks him through this entire story of scaling up his entire business, yeah, about buying more boats, about getting more people to fish for him, about having offices all over the world, having a distribution network, having this, that, and the other, yeah.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, he says, "Well, and when you've done all that," and the guy says, "Well, when I've done all that, so what?" And the guy says, "Well, you'll be able to retire." He said, "You'll be able to retire." He's like, "What?" And the old guy said, "Retire and do what?" And the guy said, "Well, you can sit in your boat and fish if you want." but this is the thing, every time you want to scale up, if you are paying for this infrastructure, you've got to sell more to pay more, then you pay more to sell more, and you're in this loop. And doing it efficiently and keeping an eye on the numbers, you can make it win for you. But in terms of being entrepreneurial and making the most of the resources available to you, rather than continually scaling up what you pay to scale up what you get back, why would you not tap into a resource like Apple or like Amazon or like Walmart? But by the way, Walmart is a difficult one to get into.
And they're going to take more than 30%.
And they're going to take more than 30%. But if you look at these digital delivery platforms, which is the ultimate of this example, once you've created your product, you have Amazon and Apple who are out there with some of the world's biggest, most effective marketing machines that they are paying for on your behalf, that they are constantly marketing to their customers. Anybody that visits Amazon or Apple has pretty much one thing in common, and that is that they've already, after the very first visit, they've already given their credit card details. They are now within the realms of a repeat customer. Their details are already stored on file. Their purchases are one click away. They're proven purchasers. They are proven to be people that are buying. They wouldn't be on a store like Amazon or Apple if they weren't looking for something to buy. They are focused on something. They're focused on a solution to a problem, on an answer to a question. They're looking to spend money. Who would not want that group of people being presented with their product? I would. I'm there all day and twice on Sunday, as Ed says. You know, and you don't pay a penny. You couldn't possibly compete with these infrastructures if you wanted to. Even if you were one of these magazine guys, one of the magazine publishers, they all turned around and said, no, you're not having 30%. Okay, if you want to be like that. How much do you give up to the retailers that retail your magazines? How much does it cost you to print, publish, and distribute your magazines? You know, versus send an electronic file to one of these suppliers and then sit back. There you go.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is something that I kind of had to butt heads with consistently when I was, a consultant with Bartercard, one of the trade exchanges here in Australia. And I know we've done this episode way back in the archives, which, I think people should go back to if you're a new listener. Welcome to the show. But also go back and listen to some of the archives, which is available at PreneurMedia.tv. And one of the episodes is all about the mirror economy. And I won't go too much in depth about what the mirror economy is, but trade exchanges such as Bartercard sort of operate in this space. And one of the things that Bartercard do is they charge you roughly 30% for every dollar that comes through your account in this trade exchange. So when you actually sell something inside the trade exchange for $100, they'll take roughly a 15% commission for generating that sale. And then when you spend that remaining $85 or that remaining $85, they'll take another 15% off the top. So fundamentally, it ends up being you get $70 back in your account at the end of the day because they take their commissions on both sides. And it was a continued struggle for these trade coordinators, the people inside the Bartercard world who, job is to actually go out and find new business inside the trade exchange for the members and help them spend their money and stuff like that. And people continually, and to this day, I'm sure they do. Like I haven't consulted or worked with Bartercard for a number of years now, but I'm sure the same sort of argument comes up: oh, you charge me 30%? That's ridiculous. Visa only charged me 3%. And that's, firstly on a very face value, that makes sense. It's like, well, this is an exchange type transaction where you get a little card you can spend and make money, and Visa don't charge you that. But when you do the numbers and look at it, okay, Visa may charge you 3%. So let's take 3% off the top of Bartercard too. That leaves you with 27%. But the Visa go out there and actually market your business in their magazines, in their yellow pages, in their equivalent version of yellow pages? Well, no, they don't have a magazine. No, they don't have a yellow pages just for Visa card people. They don't really have a concierge unless you're actually paying high fees anyway and a huge annual fee. You get a concierge to help you spend your money. But you don't have a concierge to help you bring your business. They don't have marketing consultants at Visa to help you, make more sales with Visa necessarily. So, in terms of Bartercard, it's like you don't have to do anything else. You do whatever you're doing in your real world to market your business. And Bartercard as a entity, as an organisation, as a team of a global network of staff, they're out there promoting and pimping your business to get you new business, to get you new customers, to get you new sales. And then they're also there as your buyer, as a concierge. So if you want to go and spend your trade dollars inside that trade exchange community, they'll actually go out and help you and source that purchase for you. Now, what does that really cost in the real world? Well, as we said before, you've got 3 or 4% fees for your Amex or Visa anyway. You've got 20% cost of acquisition to actually make the sale anyway. So you're at that 25%, give or take a little bit right now, and then you've got a concierge helping you spend your money for 5%. Like that's again market value, if not below market value, when you actually compare apples to apples. And so many people don't really do that actual analysis, and that's something I wanted to touch on too. So if you're sort of in that Bartercard world or that trade exchange world, go or interested in it, go back and listen to the Mirror Economy episode of PreneurCast. But it's a cost of doing business. You have that cost anyway. Just how it's wrapped up and presented doesn't change what's included in the wrapper or inside the box. So the fees are there anyway, and you're paying those costs in one way or the other right now in your business. It's just how it's wrapped up is different. and people just sort of don't want to look through the wrapper. They judge the book by its cover almost.
How about this for perspective? All right, because the way that I've mapped this out, we've both come at this. You've given your examples and I've given mine. And in mine, where you're the guy in the garden shed or the strip mall guy or whatever, you are literally paying. You're paying for the marketing. You're paying for these things. It's an absolute flat cost, no arguments. Yeah.
Yep.
So you're paying for the staff, you're paying for the fulfillment, you're paying for every step of the way. And the other side of it, if we look at Bartercard, or we look at Amazon, or we look at Apple, they're doing it for you, and you're literally not paying. And it's that simple. To me, it is that simple. And it is, again, back to this understanding. It's an understanding and awareness of what actually happens, what is standard operating procedure, and what it actually means. But really, more importantly, is that awareness. Now, we talk about this in the 7 levers. We start off, one of the core concepts of the 7 levers of business is to measure, to monitor and measure. And I think people don't do that. People don't have that idea. You off the top of your head, I know you are not looking at notes. I know that off the top of your head, you have these figures of you allocate 20% to marketing the product. Yeah? And you know what the breakdown is. You know roughly what Visa offer you, take off you for a transaction. You know what it costs to do certain things, because you measure everything, you monitor it so that you're aware of it. But I don't think a lot of people do. And I think this is where this stuff comes from. This not being aware of standard operating procedure and not really understanding or being aware of what is actually happening in their business or in other people's businesses and what the opportunity is. They just see it as money out of their pocket when it really, really, really isn't. And it's a perspective thing. I love my perspectives. I love changing perspectives. I love looking at things from a different perspective, just to see if there's any opportunity there. And this is a kind of a critical one, really. We're absolutely focusing while we started this episode with the cost of business. Ironically, this is not about the cost of doing business. We could talk about the cost of doing business. We could talk about the fact that it is really important that when you look at spending money in your business, you evaluate it against the return it's going to give you. And you need to be prepared to spend that money. Yeah? Mm-hmm. But ironically, that's not really what we're actually saying here. What we're actually saying here is you could spend that money, and you could look at it as money that you've got to spend, or you could look at these opportunities out there like bringing it back to the more real world, like paying sales commission. Paying sales commission in any industry is an age-old thing. Yeah, you get somebody, a salesperson or a sales organization, to market and sell your product, whether it's that they call people up or that they use their existing network of people, whatever it might be. And in return for that, you give them a share of the profit. It's called sales commission. And in the internet marketing space, it's called being an affiliate. You can sell a product on behalf of somebody else because you might believe that you can market it better than them, or that you have a unique way to market it that will make some sales. And in return for that, you'll get a level of the profit. You'll get a percentage of the sale price. And that, again, is an accepted thing. Although some people are very strange about affiliate commissions as well.
Yep.
Some people are very strange about sales commissions because they're not. I don't think they've got the right perspective. I know of people out there. There are people out there. A classic example. I mean, again, the internet space is an easy one to use examples from, but this maps to the real world as well. Some people really complain about how much commission they should be paying to an affiliate, to somebody marketing them and selling their product on their behalf. Now, bear in mind that on the internet, the cost of doing business is significantly less for the person, for the let's call them the publisher. So that's one thing to take into account. But secondarily, it takes time and effort to build a list of potential customers or leads, to market to them, to nurture them as leads, and turn them from leads into conversions, to convert them into a sale, and maybe sell to them again, etc., etc. That time has to be paid for somehow, whether you pay staff to do it or whatever. Now I know, one of the most successful affiliate stories I know of in recent history is it the guy who does six-pack abs?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Now he started off, and there are a number of accepted levels of affiliate commission that you can provide in the flat out kind of almost one-to-one marketing sense. On sites like ClickBank, which are places that collect these opportunities together. If you go to a big retailer like Amazon, by the way, they will happily pay you a very small commission for selling their products or taking them. But if you go to a site like ClickBank, there are people, like individual people, listing electronic products for sale that you can market and sell for them and get a reasonable commission. You might get 25%. You might get 50% of the value of every sale you make on their behalf. But the six-pack abs guy really did stand back and look at it from a different perspective, and that was that he's created his electronic product, his information product, and he's made a reasonable amount of money selling it himself and marketing it himself, but it was getting to be hard work. And he looked at the situation and was aware that the more affiliate commission he provides, the more people will be willing to sell it on his behalf. So while the industry was out there maybe offering 25% or even 50% of the sale value as an affiliate commission, he pushed his to 75%. So we've started this show talking about people complaining that in order to be part of an international marketplace full of people looking for sales, looking for purchases, looking for something to buy, that is constantly being, your products are constantly able to be promoted and delivered, and all those other costs are gone. And that is a 30% margin that supplier wants to put on your product. But this guy was willing to give 75% of the list price of his product away. Now, that is a real shift in perspective. And it took a bit of it takes a bit of thinking about, but if you realize it, he no longer does anything to sell or market his product. Literally. He does a lot to support his affiliates, because what these guys do is they spend their every waking hour out there all over the world, all over the internet, doing their absolute level best to market and sell his product for him. And he has an army of these people out there, hundreds, thousands possibly of people, possibly even more than thousands, all doing that work for him. And because it doesn't matter to him, he's not doing any more or any less work to support any more or any less of these people. He's not doing anything more or less to deliver or fulfill on or anything like that. Then I imagine he's very happy giving away 75% of the overall value, the overall list price of that product. Because I'm certain... Go on.
I was going to say, and a lot of people start then going, yeah, but it's digital, he can do that, he hasn't got any costs against it. And yes, that is true.
Yeah. You
couldn't go giving away 75% to a retailer if you're manufacturing shoes or you're manufacturing garden sheds or something like that. There is obviously industry metrics that you have to take into play. But if we're going back to the root of this show, Apple sells digital stuff.
Absolutely.
There you go. That's my argument. I've laid it out there. That is all I have to give tonight.
But just to wrap up, I mean, we kind of need an action point, a kind of a wrap-up point. My wrap-up point is this. Whenever there is an opportunity to do something like this, you need to look at it from all sides. Looking at this, and this is, to me, this is a conversation about perspective as well as opportunity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're making an extreme example. We're talking about a digital product on a digital delivery company like Apple. But all the things we're talking about are applicable to real world businesses. And, we always want to make clear that, we understand that the majority of people out there have real world businesses, because the majority of the people out there are, well, the majority. The internet space is still relatively tiny. If you're in it, it seems like there's lots of people in it. But if you're not in it, it seems insignificant. But this applies to both. There are opportunities out there. There are opportunities to get other people to do things for you, to use other people's infrastructures. And everything costs something. But you just have to look at it as, is that money coming out of your actual pocket? Is it like paying for an advert? Is it like paying for staff? I don't think I need to, but maybe we do need to talk to people about being prepared to pay that money, being prepared to allocate those 20% that you talked about, in your example, because that will give you a return. It absolutely will, and it's a vital part of any business. You've got to be realistic that you've got to reinvest or be willing to allocate a level of funding to the marketing and sales and delivery and fulfillment of your product or your service. But these things like people wanting to be a joint venture partner, people wanting to be a retail delivery arm of your product, or even these online delivery platforms, they are opportunities for you to actually not spend money, not pay out. Yes, they want a part of the overall list price, but that's not the same as the money coming out of your product. Sorry, that's not the same as money coming out of your pocket to pay for it. Yeah?
And I think the way I want to wrap this up is that this is just another perfect example, Your Honour. This is my case, Your Honour, that, core success business or core business success principles is probably a better way of articulating it. Have not changed, will not change, do not change. Just because Apple's come along and made iTunes and blown up and made a lot of people a lot of money, it's nothing really new. It's just wholesale and retail.
Yes.
Hasn't changed.
Yes.
And this is something we obviously, keep talking about here on the PreneurCast and in the Preneur community, and this Preneur style of marketing that we continue to sort of talk about, or Preneur style of business development, is that, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, all this stuff that sort of gets a lot of oomph behind it these days and a lot of talk, it's just a new tactic, a new tool. The core business principles and the core things that make a business successful will not ever change. So it's just wholesale versus retail. And when you really break it down, that's all iTunes is. That's all Apple is. It's, wholesale versus retail. So by, listening to shows like this and reading stuff like this that we share and other people share as well, it really helps you stay on the right track and not get confused and excited by the next big thing and distracted, and believe the hype, because the hype is there as marketing. And if you're marketing stuff, you have to build the hype. That's again, a principle of marketing and growing a business. But when you actually are on the other side, in the receiving end, you've got to make sure you have your Preneur glasses on and really think about it from an entrepreneurial perspective and go, okay, what is this really? What is this actually when it comes down to business principles? In this case, wholesale, retail, no different. Costs are the same, breakdowns the same, path to market's the same, principles, rules that govern it are the same.
Absolutely. I totally agree, and I think that's a great wrap up actually. That it is that people look at these new shiny objects and they really do get distracted by the glossiness of it all and think that it is something new, and it's not. It is wholesale versus retail, and these principles are out there and have been out there for many years. So I think the action point really is to look at whatever business you're in and find out more about how these principles work. Find out more what the standard operating procedure is. Whether you are a digital product manufacturer, but you really are in a wholesale versus retail environment, or you're looking to move into one. Find out more about how it works. Find out how, in the real world, those costs are split, so that you have an understanding of what you should be expecting to pay out, or what you should be expecting to give from the overall retail value, So that you when you look at this opportunity, and then you look at what you would get back for that. You know, you're aware of what it costs to do your own marketing versus somebody else do it. So that when you look at an opportunity, you really can evaluate it. I guess we're back to a framework again, aren't we?
Yep. It all comes back to frameworks.
Yeah. When you look at something, look at it, and I love that. Look at it through the Preneur glasses. Yeah, it's a great phrase because it's true. Look at these opportunities through the Preneur glasses. If you can look at the Apple thing and go, they're taking 30% off me, or you can look at it as, crikey, all that for only 30%. All right, mate, we are right on the time here. I really enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed talking about that. I think that's a great, again, as I say, perspective shift for people, and I hope everybody got some value out of that one.
Sounds good. Well, next week, as always, PreneurCast is back.
Yep.
It lives forever on PreneurMedia.tv. All the back episodes, the archives, the transcripts, the show notes, the links, all that cool stuff is available over there to get all that history.
Absolutely. And if you visit PreneurMedia.tv, do leave us a comment on any episode that you feel you'd like to chat with us about. We love your feedback on PreneurMedia.tv or on the iTunes store in your local country, or via email at PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com.
Cool. Talk to you guys next week.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gosher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at PreneurMedia.tv or drop them a line via PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com.